RFK Jr. is endorsing Trump. But the question is, why? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. There is perhaps no modern-day political figure as storied as RFK Jr. From the worm that ate part of his brain, to that bear he dumped in Central Park, to the whale he decapitated with a chainsaw and stuffed in his car. But at least the story of his presidential campaign has come to a close. And now he's endorsing Republican nominee Donald Trump for president. Given the Kennedys' history with the Democratic Party, RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Trump didn't really sit well with many, especially with his family. 5 members of the Kennedy clan came out with a statement saying that they believe in Democratic nominees Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and that RFK Jr.'s decision to endorse Trump is a betrayal of the values their father and family hold most dear. And not being the quiet types, they took to the mainstream media to make their opinions loud and clear. If only the Kennedys could lobotomize him and lock him away to avoid embarrassing the family like they did with his Aunt Rosemary. Such a noble dynasty. RFK Jr.'s sister, Carrie Kennedy, who serves as president of Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, took to MSNBC with former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki to condemn her brother.
I'm outraged and disgusted by my brother's gaudy and obscene embrace of Donald Trump. And I completely disavow and separate and dissociate myself from Robert Kennedy Jr. in this flagrant and inexplicable effort to desecrate and trample and set fire to my father's memory.
Desecrate, trample, and set fire to it? I mean, it's not like he joined the CIA. RFK Jr.'s brother, Max Kennedy, meanwhile, took to the Los Angeles Times with an op-ed telling the world to ignore him. But good luck ignoring these abs. So with all the history of the Kennedys and the Democratic Party, why Trump? Why not Harris? After all, it's not like RFK Jr. has always been a big fan of Trump. Things weren't always so hunky-dory between the two. Emphasis on hunky. In 2020, RFK Jr. called Trump a bully who discredited the American experiment with self-governance. Even as recently as April of 2024, RFK Jr. criticized Trump, saying he sounded unhinged, which, to be fair, I don't know if anyone's ever read one of Trump's late-night Truth Social novellas and thought, this is one hinged man. And according to The New Yorker, RFK Jr. texted someone that Trump is a terrible human being, the worst president ever, and barely human. He's probably a sociopath. From calling Trump barely human to endorsing him for president sounds like a leap. Trump was also not an RFK Jr. fan. He called him fake, a Democrat plant, and radical left liberal who's been put in place to help the Democratic president. Yep, totally hinged. So what made RFK Jr. suddenly side with Trump? Well, a big reason is because the Democratic Party has rejected him. Back when Biden was running for president, RFK Jr. was running on the Democratic platform. This was a problem for Democrats because they didn't want RFK Jr. to take votes away from Biden, so they quickly dismissed him as a non-serious threat. After some time, he decided to run as an independent, and to get a good idea of what the Dems' attitude toward him was, PBS reported a DNC spokesperson responded with an eye roll emoji when asked to comment about RFK Jr. going independent. That's one step above making a fart noise with your mouth. And once RFK Jr. became even more popular, Democrats heightened attacks on him as a spoiler candidate who would help Trump. They took the threat seriously enough that they tried to stop RFK Jr. from even appearing on the ballot, and painted him in the most negative light by connecting him to Trump and wealthy donors who helped him. Because lying about being on Jeffrey Epstein's plane multiple times isn't nearly as bad as being connected to the man with the mean tweets. RFK Jr. then became known as Trump's useful idiot among Democrats. But even with all that, RFK Jr. reportedly tried to meet with Kamala Harris to discuss the possibility of serving in her administration. Harris and her advisors did not respond with an offer to meet or show interest in the proposal. Liz Smith, an advisor to the Democratic National Committee, said no one has any intention of negotiating with a MAGA-funded fringe candidate who has sought out a job with Donald Trump in exchange for an endorsement. Is Smith diabetic by chance? Because she didn't sugarcoat that at all. And certainly with Democrats having attitudes like that, it was only a matter of time before RFK Jr. would turn to Trump. and now he's become an outspoken critic of the Democrats.
I left that party in October because it had departed so dramatically from the core values that I grew up with. It had become the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, big ag, and big money. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it.
It's nice to see a Kennedy taking shots instead of, taking shots. And he made his position quite clear. Kennedy said he has spoken to Trump at lengths about forming a unity government to focus on the issues he centered his campaign on, such as ending the war in Ukraine, ending media censorship, and improving children's health. It's almost like Democrats wanted him to support Trump, like in some self-fulfilling prophecy. But the mainstream media also is responsible for pushing RFK Jr. to Trump as well. Turns out the media aren't big fans of the opinions he shares about medical issues, so their coverage of RFK Jr. is often negative, with many focusing on how he spreads misleading ideas, conspiracy theories, and misinformation, especially involving medical issues like vaccines. Constantly attacked by Democrats in the media. Gee, I wonder why RFK Jr. would wind up with Trump. They have nothing in common. So by the time RFK Jr. announced his endorsement of Trump, the mainstream media went into overdrive to make him look bad. And this isn't simply mainstream media airing criticisms from Kennedy's family members. At least there's some logic there. This actually gets pretty weird. The Atlantic put out a piece titled, "RFK Jr. was my drug dealer," with a recounting of RFK Jr.'s past drug use. Because RFK Jr. is certainly the only person in politics to have used drugs. Definitely not Clinton. Definitely not Bush, definitely not Harris, and Biden, well, actually Biden probably could have used some drugs during that last debate, but things get even weirder. The Washington Post put out this opinion piece titled, "RFK Jr.'s worm here, I guess I'm supporting Trump too." This is a reference to that worm doctors found in his brain. So is the dead worm writing this piece a zombie, a vampire, a ghost? Come on, Washington Post, these are the sort of issues Americans really need to know. The opinion piece drives the point home that RFK Jr. didn't have the country's best interests at heart when he dropped out of the race and supported Trump. So yes, we've got the Washington Post publishing a piece written from the perspective of a dead worm. That's the Pulitzer Prize winning journalism we've apparently come to expect. What's next, an op-ed from Donald Trump's stomach virus? But that wasn't enough. There were even pieces claiming that Kennedy became a soldier in the anti-democratic MAGA movement, and that, were it not for the fact that he was blessed at birth with a revered name, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. might have never amounted to anything but a crackpot on the fringe. You're definitely not going to hear mainstream media outlets talk about RFK Jr. slaying like Kamala Harris, that's for sure, though this headline takes on a much darker tone when you realize Kamala isn't nearly as anti-war as RFK Jr. So what do you think about RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Trump? Let me know in the comments. And if you like America Uncovered's nonpartisan take on news and politics, be sure that you and your inner worm subscribes, smash that like button, and support the show on Patreon. All it takes is $1 an episode. Just click on that orange button. And here's another video and more importantly, YouTube's all-knowing, all-seeing, all-smelling algorithm knows you'll enjoy. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.